Yeah, my name is Amy Chau. I'm the CEO and President of PAX Technology. Want to give a brief introduction for PAX. PAX has been producing payment terminal for the last 12 years. We are a global company have presence in over 50 countries. We ship over 200 million terminals worldwide, and most of these terminals provide a way for merchants to process payment in a secure way. A lot of people have been talking about how mobile terminals have been evolving, but actually the mobile terminal has actually seen a lot of success overseas. The US, although a lot of technology is actually coming from the US originally, but the momentum is actually coming from overseas, especially in a lot of emerging markets. And the reason for that is actually pretty simple. In the US, in the last 30 years, payment actually started out in US, originally just going through phone line, and a lot of people probably have seen how it evolved into this day. Everybody's talking about wallet and alternative payment. But when payment first started out, just a very, very humble way, it's just, people taking, I owe you type of note and collect money. Basically that's how it got started. Just a bunch of people sitting around, going to a fancy restaurant and forget to bring their wallet. And because they, everybody knows who they are, so they kind of, got extended the credit for the restaurant. And so that's how it all got started. And when at the end of the month, basically the guy that owns the restaurant will go to each of them to get paid. So that's how they settle the money. And this day, everybody talking about electronic payment and how payment evolved. But at the very basic, it's actually the same. And you probably have seen quite a few presentations now. And a lot of them talk about how payment is in two different worlds, from the issuing side and to the point of sale, to card being extended at the payment the merchant's location, and then going through the network and going all the way back to the issuer and how payment got settled. But if you think about at a very, very basic way, it really is just extending a credit to the cardholder, and at the end of the day, when the merchant gets paid, it eventually it's just back to the very basic again. Just a bunch of credit that gets extended to the holder, and the merchant will only get paid when the payment is being extended at the point of sale, and that's it. So what I want to talk about is over the years, no matter how payment evolve, at the very core of the basic is still the same. And the reason why these days when people very excited about seeing all this alternative payment is there's basically two all boiled down to two factors. And one of them is have to do with security. And we have seen lots of new technology come out addressing that. And the reason for the need for the security has to do with the risk that the merchant have to take, as well as the bank on the back have to take. And security has a lot to do with how, well, first of all, when a bank takes the risk, most of the banks, as we all know, are very conservative. When they have to take a risk, they want to get paid. And this type of payment is basically what the merchant has to pay, because the bank is not going to do it for free. So if you think about all what like when you see this day, everybody's advertising, they will do the mobile payment for such and such discount fee. And if you think about what the discount fee is about, 99% of the fee that the merchant pay actually go towards paying for that type of security and for the insurance premium that the bank think they have to take a risk for. So now back to this mobile payment thing. A lot of people talk about mobile payment like again if you think back to the basic. If we know what the payment is really is basically again the bank paying extending the credit and the risk for that credit. and be able to cover the risk that they have to take. That's why they charge a fee from the merchant. So now, if we can find a way to be able to keep the risk really low at the point of sale and be able to streamline the process and also make it seamless and also reduce the chance that the payment will be increase the chance that the payment will be accepted across the board. Then that's ultimately the goal of the success of all these new alternative mobile, no matter how you call it, mobile wallet, mobile payment, any scheme basically boils down to those two key factors. And looking at a lot of a lot of presentation and a lot of new alternative method, and these days it seems like people are trying to address the mobile payment from basically just how to keep it securely in the cloud and how they be able to leverage other way to make the merchant be able to bring more customer to the merchant, which is very nice and very effective in a way. We have seen a lot of success, like such as everybody been talking about like Groupon and all these new way, basically have nothing to do with the traditional the payment, how payment is handled and how payment is accepted and how it's being processed. But to the core, the merchant is still very interested in accepting, the reason why they are willing to pay the, no matter how high the fee is, the only reason why they are willing to pay that fee is because they will be able to get more customer, and customer is willing to, extend the payment method because they will be able to buy stuff at the location that they are interested in. So that basically is what PAX is trying to provide. We are not an application provider, we are not a service provider, but at the core, we feel that our core competency is be able to provide the pumping, from the equipment side to the security side, and provide them an end-to-end system that we will be able to seamlessly provide all this pumping at the point of sale, be able to facilitate the payment being extended to reduce the risk that the merchant have to accept the payment and provide a secure way that this payment will be able to accept it and ultimately reduce the total cost of the transaction. So that is what PAX is for. And we provide point of sale terminal. So you probably have, everybody probably have been using credit card probably for the last however many years, and not that many people have used mobile terminal and mobile technology to extend payment at the point of sale. And there is quite a few reasons for that. And first of all is we have to solve the chicken and egg problem. Whenever we come out with or the industry come out with a new alternative payment method, be it like PayPal or any other payment mechanism, it always have to solve a chicken and egg problem. And PayPal was at the right time because it was able to solve, when people trying to sell stuff online and wanting to buy stuff online, that gap to be have a mediator that nobody, everybody have to trust. Nobody trusts nobody else online anymore, I guess. So it was at the right time, at the right place, and have the market, to provide this alternative method. But in retail, it's a different thing. In retail, you see the customer that is buying stuff from you. You'll be able to validate their identity. You'll be able to check their driver license to validate against whatever payment method, whether they pull out a Visa card, credit card, or their phone. You'll be able to validate that, so that you will be able to reduce a lot of risk that is not associated with the traditional e-commerce card-not-present world. But in the past, that has worked really well in the US. And in the US, the fraud rate has been really low in the last 30 years or so, ever since the dawn of the electronic payment. And there's a couple reasons for that. And first of all, in the US, 99% of the people are really honest people. You do not steal from each other, unlike in the rest of the world. I come from Asia, and we are one of the first country, and well, besides France, so one of the country to implement like very secure payments, because nobody, again, everybody's afraid others trying to steal their money. So, like in France, it's the first one to come out with chip and pin, because you don't even trust the customer in front of you. You are afraid that somehow they steal the card and they basically make the card from somewhere else rather than from the bank that actually issued the card to them. And you will not be able to validate against their identity. And in country like outside the US, even country with like national ID, I guess here you still don't have a national ID. Even for country that is really strict about being able to identify anyone that residing in that country, you still will not be able to make ensure that the customer is really who they are, let alone accepting a payment method from the customer, because ultimately the merchant, again, back to what I just said at the beginning of the speech, the merchant ultimately is the one that has to be responsible for the fraud, and also ultimately is the one that will pay up. There is quite a few mechanisms that the bank or the industry or the network, the association put in to safeguard, to reduce that risk. But when risk and everybody fraud do happen, that you just cannot get rid of all the bad guys in the world. So there's always people trying to come up with a way to steal from others. So in order to mitigate the risk, even at the point of sale at retail, probably everyone know, a credit card is really not that secure. You'll be able to produce any card by just buying like a $25 card writer from eBay. And so that is why in the past, US is always been, like I mentioned, like 95% of the people is very honest, and that's why fraud has been really limited in the US. And also the fact that US have regulations to protect the consumer from the fraud. Everybody is limited in terms of liability to probably $50, and some of the bank even will waive it if you use their card. But in the rest of the world, most of the countries outside the US do not have that kind of luxury. In the US, the reason why the bank is willing to take on that kind of risk, again, is because they get paid. They have the luxury to charge quite a bit of insurance, and they will be able to pass on that premium to the merchant. So that's the reason why you see like people advertising, the merchant in order to accept credit card, you have to pay like 2%, 3%, and some really I've seen even as high as 10% for certain type of payment method that carry certain risk, especially if the merchant is in a really high risk setup. And we are talking about like if you are going to a shop that sell Bible, it's probably going to be a lot riskier than if you go to a adult shop. That even though they are both retail setting, but the type of customer that walk into the shop to purchase a certain type of merchandise is going to be a lot different. Not in terms of demographic, but also in terms of the vertical the merchant is in. And in order to mitigate the risk, the bank had to charge more. But in outside the US, it doesn't work like that. In the US, the reason why the bank, and we always talk about like it's just a bank, but it's really not. In the payment industry, that in the US is actually pretty convoluted. The bank usually are really not the one. The bank usually is the issuer of the card, but they are not the acquiring entity. Usually it's outsourced to the financial entity that actually do the acquiring side. Is really not the bank. The bank usually is acting as an agent for this type of outsourced entity. In the US, they are usually called the private processor or the ISO. And they are the one that is responsible for maintaining, acquiring the relationship from the merchant. And In the US, it's really not much regulation on how much they are able to charge the merchant because it's just the way it was. Because the US is very competitive and there is really no centralized government or regulation agency dictating what the bank can charge or what this financial channel can afford to pass on to the merchant. In other countries, it's totally different. Most of the country has a central bank, and usually it's just one or two that is able to dictate what they can charge the merchant. And in those situations, the regulator usually will dictate how much that they can pass on this type of risk back to the merchant. In order to mitigate that, since they cannot afford to charge all the premium that they have to pay to carry this type of insurance, so the financial entity is really incented, is really motivated to keep the risk as low as they can. So that's why everybody been talking about like this chip and pin, EMV, NFC, that is going to happen in US, but it actually have happened in the rest of the world even like 10, 15 years ago. EMV has been implemented in a lot of countries. EMV is like basically the card has a chip, has the physical contact chip that you have to insert into the terminal. And since it is very difficult to produce or reproduce, unlike a magnetic stripe that you'll be able to just rub, like I mentioned, you'll be able to buy like a writer and be able to reproduce any card that you want. A chip and pin card require two-factor authentication. Even if does not require a pin, but the fact that just like your phone that has a SIM card, has a chip card in it, it carries a signature that's physically very difficult to reproduce. It's not like you'll be able to just get a $25 card right and be able to reproduce a counterfeit credit card that way. And we have seen a lot of countries, and like I mentioned, PAX has present in over 50 countries, and we sell a lot of terminal that has the capability to accept chip and pin, the EMV card, and contactless card in a lot of different countries. And US is probably the last one, the last very big market that we haven't seen a large adoption of this secure payment method yet. Even Canada has adopted 99. I just talked to a partner in Canada that they represent the acquirer that own 60% of the market share in Canada. They said 99.9% of the card issued in Canada already compliance, basically have the chip and pin in it, or it's already have the secure contactless that render any counterfeit card impossible because we carry the physical signature that is unable to reproduce. So now we are talking about just met with the health visa that trying to push this EMV and contactless even in a mobile. Everybody's talking about mobile. Even Visa wanted to have a piece of it because again right now they are monopoly and nobody when you are monopoly you really do not want to invite another alternative payment method no matter how sexy and how trendy it is. So everybody seems to think there got to be a way to provide an alternative payment method, but will work in both the retail world as well in the in the card not present world. In a way, it will both reduce the risk for the merchant, ultimately for the card issuer. That's the only way they will be willing to provide a mechanism for the merchant to accept payment. A lot of companies that we have seen in the past that provide this method, we in the US, like in this morning, I see a lot of presentation mentioned about like ISIS, Google Wallet, but I can right now they are still at the infancy of the there's really no mass adoption yet. I've seen like only 2 persons raise their hand when the question was raised about who has the NFC phone that's capable of doing the NFC wallet. So it's going to seems like it's in the US the speed of adoption of this type of alternative payment method is going to take a little bit of time, and that's the reason I actually totally agree with one of the presenter about
Starbucks have been enjoying a really big success because they actually try to bring things that actually work in the existing retail environment and still be able to have the transaction process in a way that doesn't require any additional. You just have to reduce as much roadblock as possible and be able to leverage off the existing technology, and that's the only way to guarantee a success of any new alternative payment method. In other countries, I have seen, like in China, which is the big turf of PAX, we enjoy a majority market share in China. We are partnered with the biggest carrier in the world, which is China Mobile, has 600 million subscribers. A lot. The sheer number is just amazing. A lot bigger than anyone has seen in US. And a few years ago, we were tasked with providing an alternative mobile payment method for China Mobile. And we have basically investigated a lot of other ways to make that happen. And one of the, of course, they all were into wallet because that makes sense for the carrier because they will save not only the money that they have to pay to the bank, but also they'll be able to retain the cash that is stored in the phone in a way, whether that's stored minutes or whether it's tied into their prepaid account. The carrier will be able to enjoy, just like almost identical to how PayPal work. You basically becoming a bank, and because of the sheer subscriber that they have, they can already solve the chicken egg problem as long as they provide a way to accept a payment at the point of sale. For that type of environment, especially in China, to solve the chicken egg problem is actually not as easy. Especially with the sheer scale that when we're talking about 600 million subscribers, be able to enable all those people, smartphone is really not the answer for them. You just won't be able to give away a smartphone, whether that's iPhone or Android phone, to all these people, no matter how much business you want from them. It's not going to make economic sense. At the point of sale in China, it's actually quite interesting in a way that a lot of customer actually has a card. A lot of people thinking, China or most of the Asia country is a cash-based society, which is true. But a lot of consumer actually carry alternative payment method, unlike a traditional bank card like Visa, Mastercard, or Amex. In those countries, almost everybody carry an alternative payment method, usually in a way of like an NFC chip card. And the reason for that is, in those countries, usually the regulator dictates how alternative payment method will work. And usually the first one that they push out is to enable people to easily get on mass transit. Everybody has to get on a bus, subway, train somehow. So unlike here, when in US, every city seems to have a I've seen every subway. If you buy a ticket in Manhattan, you cannot even ride to New Jersey. You have to get on to get another ticket. That's not how it works in most of those Asian countries. In a lot of big metro cities in Asia, usually the regulator or the agency that oversees the transport have a way to dictate what alternative method can be used. And when they get over the chicken and egg problem, as soon as they do, they'll be able to push out new mechanism and to make it more acceptable beyond just the mass transit. And the way it works is, first of all, they have the mass adoption of the provision out all these alternative methods, be able to have the card holder basically everywhere. And after that, the merchant will have the incentive, almost like accepting credit card like Visa and MasterCard. The merchant is actually totally motivated to start accepting this type of alternative payment method. And not only the merchant is going to be able to benefit from this, but because of the way the regulator position the alternative payment, they are also be able to reduce the risk because they will be able to employ the latest technology, whether that's NFC, chip and pin or whatever, to bring the cost totally way down for the new, even the small merchant will be able to jump on this type of alternative method. In the US, I have seen a lot of new alternative payment methods, whether they are still geared towards like the micro merchant, the really small merchant that traditionally is not unbankable but not able to accept payment. But the problem is the cost. I haven't seen mass adoption of that, and my belief is because of the cost, and the cost has a lot to do with security. Until somebody come out with a very secure way to guarantee that there will be no fraud happen at the retail point of sale, at the acceptance, there will always be a high risk of accepting that type of alternative payment method. As long as there's a high risk, then somebody has to pay for that risk. So, and we know ultimately the merchant is the one that has to pay up. That is the key to all these alternative payment methods and whether they will be able to succeed in the US or I cannot say I will be able to see the future, but based on our past experience that we have implemented a lot of these type of secure payment at the point of sale in many countries outside the US. And the only successful one is always be able to provide a very secure way, especially if they can guarantee the acceptance of this alternative payment method in a way that reduces fraud. That's the only, usually these type of mechanism is like the one that will ultimately be successful. So again, well, thank you everyone for coming and enjoy the lunch and enjoy the rest of the conference. But if you guys have any questions, feel free to come to me, and I can talk about how we implement those methods, because I feel like there's a lot of idea passing around, and which is wonderful, and that's the reason why I come here to listen and learn new things and see how we will be able to do better, be able to provide or partner with people that will be able to become a success in this, whether it's alternative payment method, mobile wallet, or mobile payment in general. Thank you.